going on YouTube? Deacon Do here. Dougall's somewhere around here. He's right here behind me. You just can't see him that well. Anyways, so today's topic actually was going to be about something else. I've got several topics lined up for this About series. And I had a plan for how the next couple were going to flow together. But then I woke up this morning and saw Sony's State of Play, specifically information about Gran Turismo's Power Pack DLC. So normally these are just off the cuff, right? But I had to make notes. So I've got a few notes for today's video to kind of go over my thoughts, my initial thoughts on the Power Play DLC. It sounds like it may possibly be releasing in conjunction with the Spec III update we've been told about we were told about it, what, a month or two ago? A little while ago, right? Spec III was coming. We all assumed, based off of Polyphony's previous DLCs, where they release them on the last week of the month traditionally. I think it's the last Thursday of the month. Regardless. So we were expecting, when they said they were going to release Spec III in December, we were expecting it, to be sometime between Christmas and New Year's. But we were told yesterday that the Power Pack DLC is going to be released on December 4th. And while they haven't officially stated it, as far as I can tell, I didn't go back and watch State of Play. I looked at their patch notes, or not their patch notes, their news release, and I'll put a link to that short release here in the description of the video. But I would assume that they're going to release this in conjunction with Spec 3, because they do mention Sophie 3.0 in their notes. But so at a high level, we're gonna have 50 new races with 6 themes, including 24-hour races. This is something some folks have done in the community already. Rory is famous for having 200 lap races wherever, right? I think he's had a 200 lapper at the Nürburgring, at Spa. I personally have done a 200 lap race at Daytona, which isn't an endurance race. It's not a 24-hour race, but 24 hours at the Daytona 200 laps at the Daytona Tri-Oval does wear on you after about lap 50, right? I know you're only turning left, but you're turning left with a pack of cars. So the cool thing, the thing I'm most excited about is they don't have a lot of info yet, but full race seasons, including each weekend having a practice session, a qualifying, and a race. So this goes along with a lot of what community does as well for their weekly racing events, right? In another video, I'm going to talk more about the World Racing Community, but I used to be a member of leadership and one of the co-founders of the World Racing Community. And that's one of the things we would do is we would, of course, we would have a practice session about an hour before the race. And that lobby would be open for about an hour before the race. At the top of the hour, we would start our qualifying, and then of course we would do our race. So seeing this in Gran Turismo, in this new Power Pack, this new race mode, I do like that. I think that's one of the things we've been lacking from a AI race standpoint. But I also think with that, the reason we're getting that, practice, qualifying, and race breakdown for AI races in this new mode is we're also going to have Sophie 3.0, which I think, Sophie has evolved quite a bit. Sophie can be, in some cases, very easy to beat. In some cases can be a pain to race with, right? Anybody who races against Sophie can vouch for that. It can be cupcake sometimes, and it can be, I almost dated myself and said Al Unser Jr., but you could be Lewis Hamilton at times, right? But in any case, with this update, we're also going to get, with this paid DLC, I should say, 5 million credits. And it looks like this DLC is going to be PS5 only. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit because I know that's going to upset some folks. And I know what I'm going to say is probably going to upset a subsection of our community, but it's my opinion, like it or hate it. First thing I want to talk about is paid. I know there's going to be a lot of uproar, especially because some things like the 24-hour races have been talked about since 2002, right? So there's a lot of people who think a lot of this stuff should have already been in the game, and so they're going to balk at it being a paid DLC. I look at it a lot differently. Now, granted, I am older. I am in a different part of my career where a paid DLC is not a big deal to me. It's not a hill I want to die on where, oh, this needs to be free. For some of our, other community members, it may be a breaking point, right? But if you think about it, we've gotten so many free updates over the last nearly 4 years, right? We've gotten PS5 Pro support a year or so ago. No, it was about a year ago. Yep. That was one of my more popular videos about if the PS5 Pro fixed VR. Speaking of VR, we got PSVR support for free. And for any of you who race in VR in Gran Turismo 7, just realizes how special of an experience that is. It's not for everybody. Some people get vertigo or get dizzy or whatnot, but it is a special experience. I really enjoy it to the point where my rig now is just VR only. I really enjoy it. We got Spec II a year and change ago, I believe. This is off the top of my head. I don't recall for sure. We've gotten a bunch of cars. I know a lot of people are complaining about the cars we get because they're not race cars, but Gran Turismo has always been a love letter to the history of automobiles. And so while I don't always agree with like the SUVs or the electric cars, it is part of automotive history. And so, they've given us a ton of free cars. They've given us a couple of free tracks. And so from my perspective, I don't see having a DLC come out that is paid as a big deal. But we don't know the cost yet. That's a big but. For me, I think if it's $30 or less, US dollars, it's worth it for me. If it's more than that, I'll probably still get it because I love Gran Turismo. I love racing. I love racing in VR, but if it's more than $30, I can see it turning a lot of people off. I would expect it to be somewhere around $30 to $40, just based off of, the way the industry is going, the price of the price that developers try to get away with. Again, I go back to, we've got so many free updates, whether you like all the cars or not, it's irrelevant. They've added a lot of support. Like I said, PS5 Pro support, PSVR support. They gave us Spec II, a bunch of cars, a bunch of tracks. There's still things they need to work on with this game. Penalty system. They need to work a little bit harder on penalizing poor sportsmanship, stuff like that. But a $30 to $40 cost would not surprise me at all. 24-hour races, like I said before, were mentioned all the way back in 2022. So, a lot of people are going to say, well, we should have had some of the stuff from the word go. I can see that. But when you have a live service game like Gran Turismo, or any live service game, it is an evolution. It is a maturation. And Gran Turismo does not, Polyphony does not always get it right. I'll be the first to admit it. But they still have a very good experience. I know it's not the best quote-unquote sim racer, right? But I always go to the tagline where it calls itself the real driving simulator, right? Because it does more than just Group 3 and Group 4 racing, or even Group C racing, right? It's more a love letter to the history of automobiles. So with that, I think some of the features that we feel we should have gotten at launch were held back because of, at launch, they still needed to support the PS4. I think as we're now, 5 years from the launch of the PS5, just about. I feel that PS4 support needs to be dropped. They need to stop providing updates for the PS4. I think one of the big reasons that this Power Pack DLC will not be on the PS4, of course, is because of the Sophie AI. It's probably going to be leaned on heavily for the new races, the season, stuff like that. So I can see from that aspect you can't support the PS4. And I know that's going to be unpopular with PS4 players. But to be frank, 5 years later, it's probably time to get a PS5. It's not like they're, rare to get anymore like they were during COVID. And this reminds me a lot of when Destiny, I want to say it was with the Rise of Iron DLC. At the time they had PS3 and PS4, they were supporting both. And I think even a version of the Xbox as well, but I'm a PlayStation player, so I'm going to focus on that. I think it was with the Rise of Iron DLC, Bungie announced, hey, look, we're done supporting the PS3. If you want to play this new DLC, you have to play it on the PS4. Everything you already own will transfer over. Your characters, all that will transfer over. But if you want to play the new DLC and the new updates, you have to play on the PS4. And I know that for a little while that fractured some of the player base. But eventually, players got the PS4. And I think the same thing would happen with the PS5. I mean, again, it's 5 years old. We're now already have our mid-generation refresh with the PS5 Pro. So, whether it's, maybe too mean to say or unpopular, if you got a PS4 and you're running Gran Turismo 7, you really probably need to upgrade to a PS5. I know they're not cheap. Not everybody can swing that or justify it, but the experience of Gran Turismo 7 on a 5 is a lot different than on a 4. It's a lot smoother. The Sophie AI is phenomenal. It does have its moments where it's a bit derpy, but I think it's time for you PS4 drivers to move up to a PS5. The initial screenshots we have in the link that I'm going to provide at the bottom from Polyphony doesn't have a ton of info, but they do show us how to access the new mode. There'll be a sailboat in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. And so that will be how we access the new mode. The weekend menu, we also see the weekend menu where it shows us practice, qualifying, and race. We do have another screenshot that shows an in-practice session, or a practice session where it breaks down all the racers, what tire compounds they're on, their different sector times, and so on and so forth. I think that's all really cool. What I would love to see is that transition to the daily races, transition to sport mode. I would love to see daily races, championship races. It doesn't have to be long, but a short practice session, a qualifying session, and a race session. I know that's going to make all the daily races longer, right? I think if you're gearing this more towards the Power Pack DLC more towards the PS5 player base, you can have longer races because you won't have as long load time in between each race, right? The PS4 kind of lags that behind a little bit when you're loading into a daily race. But I would love to see, not only just those three aspects in sport mode, but I would also love to see even another daily race where, daily race D, where, all the races are, at least an hour. More, not necessarily a 24-hour endurance race, but more of an endurance race than we have today. I know when I was in the World Racing Community and before that in SUR Racing, we did anywhere between 1 hour and 2 hour races every week. I love the longer races. It lets you strategize more. It lets you, battle. Those battles break down a little bit more. You can make up for earlier mistakes a lot easier. Consistency is rewarded much more over pace. Pace is still important, but being consistent is very important. And so I would love to see, again, like I said, practice, qualifying, and race sessions in our daily races. I think I probably am going to take the day off of work on the 4th and stream the new update to see what it looks and feels like. I like the direction that we're going in terms of full race seasons and what this mode could potentially give us. I would like to see them continue to do other things, like I said before, work on the penalty system, work on punishing poor sportsmanship more, finding ways to bring racers back that have left. There's a lot of competition in the sim racing field, and as a sim racer, Gran Turismo is, you know, it's nice because you can hop in. You don't have to do a whole car setup. You can hop in, race. You know, it's your TikTok version of sim racing. You don't have to worry about, you know, practicing and setting up your car and tuning it and all that, and then get spun in corner one and your race is ruined, right? It is more of an arcade sim, I will grant you that, but it is also still very popular, and I would like to see them build upon this even more. But I can't tell you right now if it's going to be a good update or a bad update. I can tell you I'm personally excited about it. I'm excited about racing against the Sophie AI, see what Sophie AI 3.0 looks like, see what the full race seasons feels like. Again, I'm sorry for you PS4 guys that, you know, you're gonna miss out on this, but to be frank, it's time to upgrade. You know, it's been time to upgrade for a couple years now. So I'm not sure what my next video is gonna look like. I have several videos lined up, or not lined up, but planned out. Or topics, and so I want to hit them in a particular order because one feeds into the next, which feeds into the next, which feeds into the next. This one was kind of just thrown at me last minute, so I know I've rambled on a little bit longer. I hadn't had enough time this morning to gather all of my thoughts. But leave a like if you can. Drop some comments in below about what you think might be good or bad about the new DLC, the paid DLC that's coming out on December 4th. And until next time, make sure you take care of yourselves and each other, and have a great day. Bye, guys. Bloop.